Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Growth Well podcast, coming to you from Gaborone, Botswana in Southern Africa. This is Oabona Kgengwenyane, your host for all these weekly episodes. And we are very excited to be bringing you one of our episodes. And this one is premised on happiness. Happiness because on the 20th of March, which is tomorrow, it is the UN International Happiness Day. So we're hoping that with this episode, we will be able to commemorate and celebrate with you this is very important day. Just to remind you, Growth Well brings you insights, preferably 10x insights and ideas that will contribute some nutrients to your growth. Hence the well, where you'll hopefully again be coming to drink from this well on a weekly basis. So we so look forward. Now, happiness. The theme for United Nations for this week, for this International Happiness Day, is happier together. It couldn't have been better. So you need to reflect and see what you can do to celebrate with your team. And also, I believe that we are not having enough fun in our lives anymore. And this is an opportunity for us to look back and see how we can bring a lot of swag, a bit of life, a little bit of zest and gusto to our lives, whether at work, at school, in church, or everywhere. Now, where does this all come from? Now, in 2012, the United Nations resolution proclaimed the 20th of March as International Happiness Day. And this was a recognition by United Nations that happiness and well-being should be a primary goal for everything, for every person on this Mother Earth. So this can only help us to keep reflecting and reminding us that life is more than just money. There is more to it. And this resolution, which was in 2012, was sponsored by a little country tucked away at the bottom of the Himalayas called Bhutan. Bhutan came up with an alternative to GDP, which is premised on money for development, and they came up with a called Gross Happiness Index, such that they have a more holistic approach to development that not just takes care of the money side, but also takes care of your happiness and well-being. So maybe with the United Nations, we can also thank Bhutan for being at the center of this initiative. Now, why happiness? Good people, this is, for me, a very, very dear topic. I started researching on happiness about 5 years ago when I realized that we've turned work and our lives into drudgery, hard work, sometimes even defining success in a very peculiar way. And I'll share with you why success without happiness is really a wrong approach to life. But first, as Africans, I had an opportunity to grow up in the village, observe our grandfathers, our parents, how their lives was sometimes punctuated by fun. After the day of work, either at the fields or after heading cattle, we will sit around the fire and start telling stories. There will be laughter and joy. In other tribes like the San and other tribes in Africa, they will be dancing around the fire at night, celebrating the day of hunting. So fun and happiness has always been part of our lives. But we've allowed the trends in the world to make us ignore this. But importantly, also in the developing world, in the 1990s, can you believe it? The level of well-being and happiness have dropped in the United States, in the OECD countries. So we're all grappling with this issue of happiness globally. And Africa, as ever, unfortunately, if some of you follow the global happiness rankings, you'll see that Africa, we are always dangling on the wrong side of the rankings. We dominate the top unhappiest countries in the world. That is why, for me, this is so important for us to reflect, whether you're at home, whether your family, whether at work, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're importantly a politician who is best placed to influence policies that not only look at aspects of money, but also look at your health, your happiness, your fun, because that has got the benefits, which I'll talk to just shortly. What is also important is that this story of happiness does not just come now. Apart from Africa being one of those countries or fields in the world where we started having fun, the ancient philosophers like Socrates used to ask, what is good life? Even someone like Aristotle 2,500 years ago used to also ponder over what is good life. And he even came up with a theory called eudaimonia, which says, as humans, we are here to flourish. And for me, this is the approach to happiness that we need to take. So this science of happiness did not start today. It started with our ancient philosophers from Greece to the Romans to the philosophers like John Locke of Great Britain, who even influenced the Declaration of Independence in the USA. As some of you may know, it's got pursuit of happiness stamped into the Declaration of Independence for the United States. So that's how important this aspect of happiness and well-being is important to the world. But importantly, it was also highly influenced by the movement called the positive psychology movement, which was spearheaded by a gentleman called Martin Seligman, who is renowned as the father of positive psychology. He had been as a counselor or a psychotherapist for 40 years. And he said, his experience is that you look at depression, mental health, and he says that actually does not really work. And with the work in positive psychology, it says that if you look on the positive side of life, we have a higher chance of addressing mental health issues. But importantly, you and I, who see ourselves as not depressed or having mental health, we can actually raise our level of happiness that makes us productive, that makes us effective members of our families, our communities, and so forth. So the positive psychology movement has had a tremendous impact in this aspect. Other experts such as Sonja Lyubomirsky and others in different universities, there's so much research and publications that are happening. You can't even open a podcast these days that does not have the word happiness. So I believe that as Africa, we got to also selfishly look at this concept and see how we can improve the lives of our people. Just to see also how this aspect of happiness is really blowing the world is that in just a few years ago, in the top university in the world in terms of Harvard, happiness subject was oversubscribed. The students were flocking to the lecture halls to listen to this science of happiness. So this is an example of how the whole science of happiness is now growing 10x globally. And please, let it not just grow in the Western developed world. Let's also reflect as Africans and see how we can leverage the science, because now it's becoming abundant, it's becoming accessible, it's been democratized, and we can use it to improve the lives of our people. So as Africans, we can also jump in. Now the big question is, what are the benefits of happiness? Now research, what they call meta-studies. This is a study of studies which were done at the University of California, Riverside, proved the benefits, empirical evidence, where longitudinal studies were done to try and prove or show or demonstrate that indeed happier people are better than unhappier ones. And I have to correct, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with being unhappy. We need unhappiness in life. As you know, suffering, all that builds a bit of resilience to how we approach life. So happiness does not mean the absence of unhappiness in our lives, because we also need that. But yes, what are the benefits of happiness? One, happier people live longer. It has been proved that when you are a happier person, when your levels of dopamine run high, your immune system improves, you are more likely to live a healthy life. They say even when you are a happier person, you are more likely to put on your seatbelt, so decreasing the chance of you dying in a car accident. So they live longer and they are much more healthier. So do you want to join in? The other thing is that they make more money. Happier people become leaders, they become better entrepreneurs, they become generally better leaders, and in industry and business, they tend to make more money. Also, most importantly, which really talks to us as Africans, the principle of motoke motoka babangwe, or Ubuntu, where you are able to socialize better, you are able to have better social connections, make better friends, become a better member of the family because of your social skills. As they say, when you laugh, people don't laugh when you are alone. You laugh when you are with other people. And laughter, as you know, it does trigger your dopamine, levels of dopamine, and that's what makes you a happier person. So these are some of the benefits that come with being a happier person. And I'm hoping that with these few benefits, and I can go on with many other benefits which come with being a happier person, that you think, I've got an interest in this. I can also partake in this. What are those strategies that I can also invoke for me to become a happier person? Now, us at Innolead, we just did not sit back. We said, now, can we actually come up with a formula that helps you, that helps companies, that helps families, that help everybody to be able to come up with strategies for happiness? So we came up as a consulting firm. We came up with a happiness formula that I hope you can be able to leverage. Now, this happiness formula obviously did not come from just a canvas with nothing. We developed it based on some of the principles and models that have been developed by top scientists in the field, like Martin Seligman, Sonja Lyubomirsky, and many others, and to try to put together what we think can really work for people. We named this formula Joy Rap. Joy meaning that you really can't do anything unless you're having fun. As when Richard Branson was asked about what is the secret success for Virgin, he said the secret of success is having fun. They have fun at Virgin, and that's how it was translated into the bottom line. So you can see that having joy, and joy here, we're talking about positive emotions. We're talking about love. We're talking about calm, contentment, ecstasy. You know, that laughter that I talked about, playfulness. Those are renowned and been researched by neuroscientists to prove that if you're in that space where you're having fun, you are more likely to be productive in whatever aspects of life that we're engaged with. The second one, remember I said joy REM. So the joy is the happyology aspect of it, the fun part of it, and then the R represent relationships. And this is where now we are back to our African culture of community, of having social support. Remember, when your grandmother is not well, you are able to, and historically, you'll be able to give even some of your kids or your cousins to stay with your aging parents, to be able to support. And we know that one of the biggest killers in the world today is loneliness, because we no longer have those strong social connections. So relationships is part of the formula, a joy rep, for us to be successful. And I have to remind you that we have had this fallacy about success, that for us to become successful, to be happy, we've got to be successful first. But this has been turned upside down, where now the formula joy rep has to come first before we enter success. So remember, it's not about success, then you're happy. So that car, that big promotion, all those tend to be short-lived if you want to be happy. Even beauty, even marriage, to say, look, if I get married, I'll be happy. All those have been proven to really be short-lived in the world of happiness. So yeah, what happens? Let's go back to joy rep. So we have joy, then we have R for relationships. The next one is engagement. Engagement, that's your occupation, what you do for a living. And here we visit concepts like flow to say that in life, you've got to choose an occupation that's in line with your talent profile. In other words, you've got to make sure that whatever work that you do, it goes with what we've learned from strategic coach called unique ability. It's got to match with your unique abilities that come natural to you. So when you are in flow, it's when you are in line or you are one with the music. You don't even realize time because you do what comes to you naturally. Like me, I am in consulting because I like insightful, I like reading, I like frontier of ideas. So when I'm in there, I'm actually in flow and I don't even realize time. So that's engagement. So Joy Rep, we've got J for joy, we've got R for relationship, we've got E for engagement. So what's the next one? The next one is very fundamental. Rep, P at the end stands for purpose. And this is the why question, which people like Simon Sinek talks about. Even philosopher Nietzsche talked about the why of life. That if you've sorted your why, the hows become much easier. So this is where you've got to make sure that in life you define what are those things that are important to your life. Such as you might say, my purpose in life is to look at aspects of climate change. I might be very much into sports, where my life is to improve the sports capabilities or sports excellence of young people. So obviously, it's very customized. It's really up to you as to what you are choosing as your purpose in life. So that's the summary. We've got joy, we've got relationships, we've got engagement, and we've got purpose. And all that is equals to success. Success representing accomplishment, self-mastery, and that is the equation. And one of the podcasts that are coming, we're going to unpack this formula even more so that you can see how you can joy rep your life or wrap your life around the joys of life. So, is happiness a choice? That is some of the big questions that come up very regularly where people think, circumstances, I'm a victim of government, I'm a victim of the politicians, they don't like me at work. But the issue is, and the research has demonstrated that you can actually influence your level of happiness. Now, again, research that has been done in the field of happiness has demonstrated that about 50%, some say between 30 and 50% of your happiness set points come from your genes. So it's genetic. I'm sure you've got friends and family members, you've got kids, you can see this kid is always bubbly, he's always the one who's gregarious and happy one, and this kid is more one on the depressive side. So we're all different, and this is defined by our genes. And a lot of experiments have been done on identical twins to actually demonstrate that indeed a percentage of our happy gene, our happiness comes from our gene makeup. And then what about the other percentages? We've got the research have shown that the other 10% comes from what they call circumstances. This is where you get married and you think you'll be happy. This is where you get your promotion at work and you think you'll be happy. This is where you write a book and you think you'll be happy. So all that, sometimes we really think it makes a big difference. But unfortunately, it only occupies 10%. That's why we got really hit when you make, research has been done on lottery winners who you win $10 million and then in 3 months' time, you are back to your set point because that's how temporary it is. So 10%, only a little bit, is based on your circumstances. So what happened to the other 40%? The other 40% is really up to you. It is the habits that you invoke in your life, interventions that are within your control. That is the 40%. In other words, through neuroscience, what they call neuroplasticity. In other words, you can actually fiddle with your brain to be able to adopt new habits that make you a happier person. And this is where it's critical because this is where you come in, where now happiness becomes a choice. So how does it happen? You got different strategies and we can unpack them in the next podcast. But one of them is that it's been shown by scientists again that if you practice appreciating your blessings or gratitude acts, that tends to improve. And a lot of research has been done with graduate students, where for 6 months they were noting on their gratitude journals every day 3 acts of gratitude that they wrote down every day for 6 months. And that actually took some of them out of depression, just by appreciating the good things that are there, and very simple things that are there in life. The other one is conducting acts of kindness. We sometimes, I remember when I was a young boy in the village, how my grandfather will slaughter a beast or a cow. And when he slaughters a cow for the family, we actually used to have a pot. And this pot was just for the passerbyers, were the people that will visit. And that is how, the level of kindness, the level of community and the spirit. And I remember when I was a young boy, I used to see people coming to the homestead and they'll walk away with different pieces of meat, because that's how we were at the time. Are we doing that these days? And that is how even my grandfather, who passed away in 1982, managed to live into his 80s. And I think it is these principles that gave him such a long life. What are the other interventions? The other interventions, obviously, is things like exploring your spirituality or even religion. Remember, spirituality is broader than just religion. This is where you might be what they call Spinoza God, which is based on the universe or nature as your spirit, or meditations, whatever you choose. But being spiritual can also help you in terms of one of the interventions that you can evoke. Obviously, your body in terms of health, where you do physical exercise every day or 3 times a week, whatever you do, that also is an intervention or habit that a lot of us try and do. But remember, we do a lot of physical exercise, let's say once a day or 3, but do we do enough around our emotional fitness? And this is where this podcast of happiness comes in to also help you in that regard. Now, let me remind you, all this is about the big day tomorrow, which is the 20th of March, which is the International World Happiness Day. So please, what can you do to prepare for this day? And this podcast is to remind you that let's try and do something crazy, something different for that day at work, and stop this predictable, 8 to 5 hard work, drudgery at work. So some suggestions of what you can do at work to just build that zest within your work area. One of them is, let's start with education, something that's very dear to my heart. As a teacher, why don't you spend the day having fun with your students? They might get to know you better. Or even more so, why don't you get the students to openly, candidly tell you what their talents are, so that you can see whether the education, what they're doing, actually aligns to their inherent talents as students. So let's light up the school and do some fun stuff. At work, Mr. CEO or Ms. CEO or senior management, why don't we or you set up the day such that it's fun at work? Why should all these things be what Google does or what Yahoo does? All these things can be done so that people have a lighter and fun day at work. So maybe as the CEO, why don't you spend the day having fun with your workers? Or what you can do, some people don't really understand the science and philosophy around happiness and well-being. So why don't you bring an expert to come and talk to you about happiness? This is something that we do at Innolead, but there are many others that can come and help you to unpack the science so you can appreciate and see how you can joy wrap your life or your work or your business. Bringing, again, productivity. As I said, the benefits is that when you infuse the principles of happiness, it does improve the level of productivity at work. So there's something there for you as well. So with this podcast, I hope that you're going to make the 20th of March a big day. And please, if these interventions I'm suggesting, these are just suggestions, but it's really up to you. So one of the things that, why don't you ask your staff? If you're at church, ask your congregation, what can we do on the 20th of March? If you are at school, ask the students. If you're in the business, ask your staff, what can we do to infuse joy wrap into our lives or our work such that we can improve productivity. Remember, there's something in there for the bottom line. So you're just not doing it as bubbly, laughing, fluid type stuff. There is some hard science behind it in terms of empirical evidence that happiness does make a better world. So thank you very much. I hope this has been beneficial. These are weekly podcasts where we share these insights from our well of wisdom, and hopefully you can join us again next week when we touch on another subject, or we invite some of our experts to come and share you some more insights, again premised on 10x ideas that hopefully can also spin your life and make you grow so that you are better than yesterday. Thank you very much and have a good day.